Everybody, it's your boy Carlos here,
And Joseph,
and this is
the
the
passenger
passenger
seat.
seat.
Ba-da-ba-da.
Um,
Yeah.
All right. I'm very excited about today's topic, guys. We're gonna go back in time a bit, a retro movie that I think most of America notices or have watched at least once in their life,
hmm
and I guess it claimed the best high school movie of all time.
Debatable.
And we're gonna be talking about The Breakfast Club. Woo! That was great. All right. So The Breakfast Club.
The Breakfast
You got
Club.
any information on it?
Yeah. We're gonna talk a little bit about the film, a couple of anecdotes and facts, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about how we remember the movie. I guess. I know Carlos has watched it like a gazillion times, so he probably knows a couple of things by heart. I haven't watched it that many times, but I have watched it a couple. Okay.
That's
Um, all right. The movie came out in February of 1985, February 7th to be exact.
oh, okay.
It's directed by John Hughes. Um, and yeah, basically the story is five high school students who all are in Saturday detention, and these kids are from different walks of life, and basically they get to know each other a little bit during detention, and that allows them to like see each other in a different light. um you know
That's what. It's funny because what I love about the movie so much is that if anyone asks you for the synopsis of this movie, it's so simple. It's like
mhm,
five kids in detention on Saturday and they just interact. Like that is it. You know what I mean? Like it's such a
yeah,
simple plot, but then like if you watch the movie, it's like fantastic.
right,
Even it
right,
only
right.
has like one set. The high school.
But yeah, it's still very apparent today, how in schools everywhere, how that the whole plot of the movie where everyone belongs to a certain clique.
Yeah,
And sometimes being in a clique, you're forced in some type of peer pressure, to not interact with people outside of your clique. So this movie is a test of time. Uh, you know, it just influences. It didn't just influence our generation, but it influences generations to this day, because of that moral message in the movie.
definitely, definitely. I mean, it's a great movie. I think for a lot of ages, especially the kids in high school, because it's a movie that I feel like will. Obviously, there's a couple of parts where you see in the movie where it was back in the '80s, and this is like the new time. We have cell phones now. We'll basically ignore each other in detention because all you're gonna be is on your cell phone.
Right, right, right. True.
but but it was still such a great movie because they grab every aspect of what a click is. You know, I guess we can sort of dive into the click by naming off the characters here. So there's five teenagers who hang out together, and each of them are from different cliques. I guess we'll start with the popular kids, which is Andrew and Claire.
Andrew and Claire.
Andrew, your basic jock. He plays not pro wrestling with me. He does wrestling, so it makes him like a
Right.
jock and makes him like the cool kid. And Claire, well, basically she's beautiful and rich, so she's one of the popular girls.
Yep.
Um,
Uh, speaking on that, let me just interject for a sec. You remember back in high school, the any kids like who belonged to a certain team or did sports, they would call them in the middle of the class, and they would just like get up and go to their like
yeah.
game or something, and then everybody like in the classroom would like start clapping like, oh yeah, good luck, oh my god, Eh,
The
brings back
cool
memories,
kids.
doesn't it? The cool kids, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll get more into their details of their past, of how they got there and stuff like that. I just want to mention the clicks real quick. Um, You got Brian, who basically is the nerd,
He's
represents
the
the
nerd.
nerd clique,
Mm,
chess club, math leads, you name it, he's a nerd. The
right.
stereotype. You have Bender, who essentially is the bad kid, the troublemaker, always
The
in
rebel.
detention, break a rebel, just breaks the rules. Then
Hmm.
Allison is interesting because Allison, I feel like, is the only one there who's like, I don't know if she's part of a clique or she's that one kid in your school who hangs out by themselves and probably has a cat tail.
Yeah. Yeah, she's the one, she's the type of person in your school who would like sit next to a water fountain and draw.
Yeah, that's so true though. And you get one or two people who hang out with them, but they're also that weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I kind of feel like I was partially that weird kid back in school.
Not in
Um,
high school though.
yeah, I mean, I fell into, I was one of those people who never really fell into a clique. I was more just like I'd hang out with all sorts of people. I didn't really conform to like one single group.
Mm,
I hung out with the cool kids. I hung out with the jocks. I had, I hung out with people who were into the same stuff that I was, which was gaming, card games, board games, you name it. Um, everything, everything.
I think I have to do like the same. I don't remember myself being in a clique. I was an all around person. I talked to everybody. I played basketball, but with the jocks. I hung out with the. I wouldn't say I hung out with the nerds. I probably hung out with the geeks who were into like geeky things. But when it comes to being a nerd, like into school, I was never into school, so I probably didn't hang out with those kids.
Right, you weren't one of like one of the people who study a lot, or are like, oh my god, I need an A+.
Yeah, and I had
Which
rebellious moments too, but I think one of the things I've never was in high school is a bully. I was never a bully in high school.
I think I was a bully in middle school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was kind of a bully in middle school. I was a real jackass, but people grow, and as you grow and sort of become more empathetic, you really start to mature and understand
What are
what
you
kind of
waiting
effect
for?
you kind of understand what kind of effect that has on people. So, yeah. So middle school bully, high school I was all around and sociable to an extent, I guess. I was like that one guy who was like, yeah, he's cool, even though we don't hang out with him. He's
Yeah,
like, he's okay. He's an okay
he's all
kid.
right.
Yeah, he's
He's
alright.
there.
He's there. He's decent. He draws next to a water fountain. Oh man.
I guess not really a clique, but two other characters who actually talk in the film because there's only 7 people who actually talk in the film, and that's our principal who shows up, and it's Principal Vern and the janitor, which I don't remember the janitor's name exactly, but there's a point in the movie where they have a conversation, and it's not a clique, but it's sort of an understanding of adults and how much the generation above them changed, but not really. It's just when you grow older, you grow more mature, and you find those stuff annoying. But back then, you used
Yeah.
to do it. You know?
Yeah. 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 So, going a little bit back to the synopsis, you have these 5 kids in detention, and you're like, okay, well, they learn about each other, but what else is like interesting in that story? It's the fact of the principal being there, and it's he's a power hungry principal. He likes to have order and have everything in control, and that reflects a lot in the movie. So on top of this being a story of different cliques, sort of like seeing both sides of the coin, it's also the principal, getting that like getting infuriated with these kids, but at the same time having like a semi-realization, like, you know what, I was like that too.
Yeah, I always had this thing in my mind of like, man, I think Principal Vern was actually like Bender when he was young. Maybe that's why
Maybe.
he disliked Bender the most.
Yeah, that's could be. It's a possibility. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the cast.
Oh yeah,
Because we
course.
do have a
Very.
really very good cast.
They're the '80s Brat Pack was their name, and it was always consist of the same actors. So
Hmm.
obviously you have Molly Ringwald, most famous actress in the '80s, Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles. You know, you go on in the '80s, she's there, and I think John Hughes really liked her in his movies.
Yeah, yeah. Molly Ringwald played Claire. For those of you who
Yes,
don't know, or you're sitting here saying I've seen The Breakfast Club, but I don't know them by name.
it's
You
Claire.
also, yeah, you had Judd Nelson as Bender.
Mm,
You had how do you pronounce her name? It's Ali Sheedy.
Sheedy, Ali
Sheedy,
Sheedy.
Ali
Yeah,
Sheedy, who played
yes,
Allison.
Sheedy.
Sheedy.
All right.
You have Anthony Michael Hall, who
Mm-hmm.
played Brian.
Really big
Uh,
actor in the '80s as well.
You had Paul Gleason, which was the principal, and last but not least, obviously Emilio Estevez.
Yes.
Hmm.
Milo Estevez. Actually, all of them were really big in the '80s. What am I talking about? You know, they were just starring in movie. I think when they got older, it's sort of like, but
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I think it
Um,
was a very perfect. I don't know how he did it, but it was such a perfect cast. It was
they
crazy.
had they really had a great interaction between each other. Yeah, it was really good chemistry on screen. Um,
Yeah,
so, huh?
I said you're right.
Yeah. So, that basically is the cast. Other than the janitor, I'm so sorry. I did not look up info on that.
That's
Forgive me. Okay, well, let's talk about the featured song in the movie
oh
that we all know and love.
yes,
We remember fondly. And that was "Don't You." In parentheses, forget about me. Um,
yes.
yep, and it was performed by the Scottish rock band Simple Minds,
Hmm.
right? And it was composed and produced by, I'm gonna butcher this. It's Keith Forsey, yeah, Keith Forsey, and Steve Schiff.
Hmm.
So that song is super iconic. Um, it's one that really stuck with people. So yeah, the movie itself, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a score of 89%, which is pretty high, right? But
Hmm.
in sites like Metacritic, it's got 66%, and IMDb has it at 4.5 out of 10. So
Oh
pretty low ratings. Despite the fact, though, the movie is a cult classic.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of movies like that, that they maybe they're not the best film per se, um, but people love those films regardless.
Yeah, it like grabs a certain like a generation, a certain clique of people who just really enjoy those movies, becomes a hit, but critics don't necessarily think it's good. Obviously, there's a couple of examples. I think one of your favorite movies, American Pie,
American
I think
Pie.
is so a movie like American Pie just encapsulated like the whole 2000s. Everyone loved it, cult classic, right? Critics
Hmm.
still didn't think it was great, but sometimes critics that doesn't matter. As long as you enjoy the film, it doesn't matter what critics think.
So I guess the last thing to talk about is personal feelings about the movie.
So we'll talk about our thoughts. Obviously, me, one of my favorite films. I always have it on my rotation of films every year. I end up watching this film. I think it's just the way it's portrayed, the understanding of the characters, and it's just a simple plot of it, but yet there's so much detail behind it, so much detail behind each character and why they're there and what they do. And I just think it's great. And I love '80s movies in general, though. So I have all those other movies on DVD as well. So it's just one of the ones that I gotta have on my list. Top 10, it's probably there.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I feel like the movie it speaks to a part of not just me but people who watch it in general, because you see these kids, and you, at least I don't know if it happened for you, but it happened for me. I sort of identify with a little piece of every single one of them, in some sense,
Yeah,
you know.
yep,
Um,
that's definitely true.
so it's a movie that you can connect with on a personal level, and just the feel good sort of style of that movie makes it enjoyable to watch. Same thing with American Pie. It's one of those movies that you watch, and it's a feel good movie. You see it, you have a laugh, and and you just, it's relatable to some extent, and you're like, man, this is it creates a sense of like nostalgia to us watching it now.
Yes.
And I think that's why we always tend to like gravitate back to it every ever so often. All
Fun
right.
fact.
Oh,
There's one
go.
thing I want to throw in. Just a funny thing. There was this theory going around from like I listened to like podcasters and stuff, and apparently there was a theory going around that the whole time Allison, everything that happens, Allison's like imagining it, and then it goes back to reality, and basically everyone's just still sitting there, not talking. Like the whole movie is just her imagining it, and then it reaches the end, and everyone's still not talking. She's just imagining it. That's just
and
funny to me.
and yet that seems something like, it seems like something totally plausible for a person like Allison.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
All right. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this ride with us today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the topic. Make sure to like our video. That'll help us grow. Subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and comment
Definitely.
down below your favorite 80s movie, or what part of The Breakfast Club you enjoyed the most. Who was your favorite character, or who did you relate to? And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this ride with us today, and hopefully you'll join us next time here in The
The
Passenger
passenger seat.
Seat.